Hey, this is Jeremy Vanderloop with CRES Community. Thank you so much for tuning in to this CRES Chat. We're very excited about the content that's coming out of some of our guests. Please subscribe and also check the schedule. Come in person and be a part of this conversation. For this episode, I've got my friends Scott Bedell and Danny Clark. Now, me and Scott have been friends for almost 20 years, and he's one of the top executive coaches on the planet. And Danny Clark is just an amazing entrepreneur. And I'm just excited to have this conversation on how to run your businesses without them running you. Guys, what's going on? My name is Jeremy Vanderloop. This is our CRES Chat. We are on a subject matter of how to run your business without it running you. And I have Danny Clark here and Scott Bedell. Scott's been a good friend of mine for 18 years, is what it is? Long time. And Danny Clark, we just met. And so we're going to have some fun. And we're going to dialogue and talk through what do you do exactly, Danny? Like, let's walk through that. What are some of your avenues of business? Tell us about yourself.
A few. The main one is Clark Electric. Started it 14 years ago from nothing. I'm a third-generation electrician in the Tampa Bay area. Worked for my dad for 8 years. Went off and got my license and started Clark Electric. And we're 14 years in the making, still going, and 82 employees throughout the entire state of Florida. Our target niche is grocery-anchored retail shopping centers, from a grocery store to a tenant space, retailer, to site work and site lighting. So, and we have a service department too that services clients throughout the state.
Okay. And you have two other companies we were talking about that are kind of spin-offs and vertical integrations to Clark Electric. What are those two other companies?
Yeah, those have been really good for us over the past couple of years. One of them is called Apex Utility Structures.
Okay.
It's a parking lot pole setting business that Clark Electric will hire Apex to come out and set the parking lot poles in the parking lot that we're doing. And you know, they're just a subcontractor for us.
Yep.
And we're only about 5 to 10% of their business. The niche for them is other electrical contractors and doing their work for them in the same facet. Is they come out, they drill the hole in the parking lot and install the parking lot pole, and the electrician just wires it up. And then the other one would be commercial real estate. And that's really started with facilitating Clark Electric's space. Yeah. And it'll grow from there.
So they all tie in. I have a talk that, it's all about economic engines, right? And having these engines, can these offerings run, and they feed into themselves. They feed in leads and processes and those type of things. And it sounds like it's a fairly well-oiled machine. Like, you're not, like a lot of like startups or a lot of entrepreneurs, they try to plant all these new trees. Right? Oh, this is a really good idea. I'm going to go do this. And it sounds like you've really locked into growing this one tree with vertical integration, the economic term. That's just like, hey, all these feed in. I'm seeing a problem. I'm going to create a solution that I need the solution for. Oh, by the way, I think other people will too, so let me have another company. Does that sound about right?
It is. And I think, for the most part, if you have a problem, other people have a problem as well. And if you can create a business.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, hold on. Daniel, is his microphone on? It's probably a cable. There we go. Go ahead and talk into it.
Hello? Hello?
Bad XLR.
Hello? There it is. Yeah.
All right. Sorry, a little technical difficulty
That's
there.
all right.
But yeah, so this is good. So Scott, tell us about yourself. What do you do? I know you've ran companies. And you're doing fantastic work now, help supporting other company owners.
Appreciate us being here today. It was perfect timing. Me and Danny were meeting. Danny's a client of mine, Clark Electric, and Apex Utility Structures, also a client of ours that Danny brought to us. And so Action Coach Tampa Bay, we're a business coaching and training firm that works with high-performing growth companies doing 7+ figures in one-to-one vocational coaching. And we just recently launched membership this year to help 5- and 6-figure businesses build up, sort of like an opportunity to help smaller businesses build out the system structure in their business. Like James Clear says, that you don't rise to the level of your people, you fall to the level of your systems. So I believe today we're going to talk about systems and processes. And usually when I meet business owners that are looking to grow and scale their company, most times our initial reaction is, well, we just need more people to take over things I'm doing. And so we help recognize that most business owners are really operators in their business. And so business owners that are operating their day-to-day, helping them get out of operator mode and into creation mode, like Michael Gerber talks about in EMIS. So look forward to today's conversation.
Yeah, it's going to be a great chat. It really is. Danny's mic, you're running a new XLR for that? All right. So I'm just going to kind of tee up the question. He's going to exchange that XLR and throw that thing away. You hit it right on the head. So a lot of people, it's how to run your business without it running you. And Scott, all three of us, I think, are actually in the same lane in this space. The idea is that I don't have like a real company until I can leave it for 6 months and no one calls me. Correct? You guys agree with that? That's a definition of. I've heard that. I've said that. I've heard you say it. Do you believe that too? Yeah. Brad Sugar said it too. Yeah. We're going to have to re-say that because the mic wasn't on at all. And Daniel, what's up? Give it up for Daniel, guys. He's the man. Nothing works without the guy in the back, right?
That's awesome.
Hello.
There we go.
Yeah,
there
that's
we
better.
go.
Yeah, textbook of like who, not how as well, you know?
Yeah.
Be like, how do these things run? Men in the chair, guys in the back.
That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah, so say it again. So this is like a principle that, and people have worded it, so Brad Sugar has said this. I mean, so many guys have said this, like Dan Sullivan, Vern Harnish, right? Traction, EOS guys. I mean, everyone. It's just these are just like different flavors, right? But it's all about the same principle. Like, let me have an asset and equity that pays me while I sleep. That's not tied off my resources. Like, how can I own a company and own assets that pay me cash flow that's not tied to my energy, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot more to that than just the personal aspect of it. I think it is the driving factor that shows you have a true business that can operate without one individual, right?
Yeah.
And it's really not just about you. Can that business operate without you for 6 months? Great business. Can that business operate with other leaders within the organization over a period of time, maybe not 6 months, but an extended period of time? That's a good business too, right? Not just the thing that you control. How are the systems set up and processes to where it works? Truly the business functions without one particular person.
So with that, first question, why do we get trapped in this operating mindset? Why are some people able to break out of it while others are not? Scott, what do you think?
I was like, Danny, you want to take this one? Or?
I mean, I can. It's up to you.
Yeah, you were smiling. Why don't you say? I've got my own opinion, but I'd love to hear yours first.
I'm smiling because that was me.
Yeah.
100%. 14 years ago, I was the only person at Clark Electric, right? I was the technician. I was the manager. I was the operator. I was the estimator. I was the admin, right? So all these things, you're the technician at all those, right? And then as the opportunities come and your business grows, it's hard if you start as the technician in the business, right? Which how I think a lot of businesses start, and people want to be an entrepreneur. They have something that they do themselves. And to move out of that is very difficult because that's the passion that got you there, right? To move out of that and give that to somebody else. So as your business grows, you've got to be able to adapt out of a position and train somebody else, right? So I think the first part is when you're growing a business, you hire people to do the things that you're probably not good at. Well, a good business hires the people to do the things that you're really good at. And that's how you come out of the technician phase.
Scott, what do you think?
Yeah, well said. Yeah, and this all goes back to a book by Michael Gerber, The E-Myth. It's a great read. And it just touches on that point. You know, Danny, getting to know Danny, he's both technician and entrepreneur. You know, Clark Electric got started out of his own sweat, equity, and then after you build that out, you start looking for other opportunities, and Apex Utility Structures came out of a need fulfilled by his company, getting annoyed by using pole companies and just going, there's got to be a better way. And so, like Michael Gerber says, that all businesses are pretty much started from either a technical side or seeing a gap in the marketplace you can exploit in a positive way that brings a better service than what's currently being offered. And the difference between staying in operator mode and being a business owner is your willingness to take on confusion. And what I mean by that is the process of learning is going in and out of confusion. And so many business owners I meet don't want to risk leaving something that they're good at. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times that's because we place so much identity on what we're doing rather than what we're being. And I'm not trying to get like super deep in that. However, it goes back to this principle that Brad Sugars talks about, the B times do equals have, is that as a business coach that helps high-performing businesses grow and scale, you would think that it's all, well, let's just show you the process of doing, when reality it's really, you've got to look at yourself and go, what's the big picture goal, and what am I willing to let go of? And like Danny said, like hiring people that are better at something than I'm at is is a hurdle some business owners quite honestly just aren't willing to go into.
And there's that delicate dance there. Like for me, it's starting something. You have to learn how it works first, so you can teach somebody how to do it. And I lean so heavily in the 80-20 principle of leadership that like basically I need to get in the weeds, and that's where people don't realize. So when you start a company, if you start it without getting in the weeds at first and not knowing the functionality of the pain points, you're not actually going to be able to lead that thing well and know if somebody's actually doing the job well enough. And that is the hardest part, because you have to have this trigger point where you go, at this, and it's hard deadlines in my opinion, that says at this time, no matter what, we will be doing this, right? And it's like you have to, and then it's like do or die, wherever we're at, that deadline hits. Like we're soft launching from this point to this point. I remember we had that with CRES even. It was like, all right, soft launch. We have 0 members. Don't even know what we're doing. We just own a building. Built it out. Crap, now we got to run this thing, right? That's like how this thing started. I was like, okay, we're really good at real estate. We're really good at build-outs. We're really good at operating in this lane. But now we have to operate on this day-to-day. And you're like, uh-oh, this is hard, right? And you get that going. And I remember setting a deadline of September 1st, saying, all right, September 1st, no, do or die, no matter where we're at, we are hard launching as a company. And we were not ready on September 1st. And we did it anyways, right? And so for me, as this is my 3rd startup, that's the hardest hurdle, is to get out of the weeds and then also knowing when to get back into the weeds. And that's probably the biggest thing, is like how to run your business without it running you. For me, it's dictating and understanding, like sooner or later, I sometimes have to get back in the weeds, but it's very controlled, it's very specific, it's time-bound, and it's like, okay, for this quarter, this is going to be my big goal, and I'm going to get in the weeds here as a leader because it's inefficient. And then you're trying to find the connection points of how to actually lead your people while managing your systems, and that's kind of where, in my mind, what do you guys think of that? I mean, it's like when, as a leader, when do you get to the point where the company is sustainable enough? Is there a revenue play? Is there... and every leader is different, every founder is different, every operator is different. The name of the game is to be able to never touch it, right? And to let that thing just run. When do you think it actually gets to that point where you don't have to be nurturing it as much?
Well, I think there's a few things there. Back to what you said, it's very important to know when you need to jump back in and get through through different items. Scott and I talk about it all the time. It's like seasons, right? There's growing, there's planting, and there's harvesting, and all these different things. It's being able to look ahead, see what's coming, and see what you really want to do with the business. Are you starting a business to just work for yourself, right? As a sole entrepreneur and just like the owner operator,
Solopreneurs, yeah.
right? And that's okay. I want to say that that's okay to do too, but that's not scalable, right?
Yeah.
Do you want a business that can operate without you? And I think that's the main topic is running the business, not letting the business run you. Well, you can't stay in that space.
Even as a solopreneur, how do you do it as a solopreneur? Right?
That's a great question.
Yeah. So, and let's
Scott,
back
you
up
can
for a
have this.
second too, because right on that point, it's really important to understand the frame and the definition, because I think sometimes we get the definition. When I first started my business senior in college, I didn't have the true definition of a business at the time. And so I love Brad Sugar's definition of a business is a commercial, profitable business that works without the owner.
Okay.
And when you think of that definition, if someone would have told me that definition, I would have stopped calling myself a business owner. It took me a year and a half, 2 years.
Say that again. I'm going to
A
write it down.
commercial, profitable enterprise that works without the owner. That's a business owner. Because where is the business owner on the org chart? What is the rate of pay for a business owner, and what is their duties on the org chart? The answer is there isn't one.
It's not there.
The business owner does not make a salary.
They do not.
They
no.
get
No.
distributions from
Yep.
a profitable company. So if you're calling yourself a business owner in the marketplace, you're basically saying, I have a commercial profitable enterprise that pays me quarterly distributions
Without me showing up.
without me showing up. And so when we start calling it by its right name,
Yeah.
it took me 2 years into my first business, a moving business, to realize I'm not a business owner. I had more titles on my business card than most PhDs, with or medical professionals.
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm the president, CEO, founder, this and that. And when I got rid of all the artificial titles and just started relegating myself to a mover, and then the goal is to fire myself from the lowest position in the company. And then once I can fire myself from those, that means I'm building up assets along with systems. So people are running the system that's being created, and I'm managing the system.
Yeah. So defining it, right? So you have, and for me, I've put two different positions of revenue generating. So one, revenue generating, is energy produces income. Strategy produces wealth. As an entrepreneur, and now that's probably the biggest differentiator. Am I an entrepreneur or am I a business owner? Because entrepreneurs are actionable, driven people that solve problems. Not everyone who buys a business is an entrepreneur.
Absolutely.
They're simply a business owner. So I'm an entrepreneur. I start things. I'm a problem solver. I create solutions. Sounds like you're an entrepreneur. And you're an entrepreneur even. It's figuring out these things. And so I think that's actually a really cool definition is like I'm a business owner. And the craziest thing is when you drop back, but like I was a business owner.
Yeah.
I had like at that thing with Brad Sugar, I remember like can you stand up? And I was like, yeah, I could. And then I was like processing it through like my development company and everything, where it's like we'd have freedom of time, freedom of money, freedom of relationships. Would just leave because I had a solid team and inventory running, and it would run without me easily. And then I got back in the weeds as an entrepreneur. All of a sudden, I was like, well, crap, I got to sit down because that's true over here, but it's not true right here, right now. And that's the fascinating thing. When do you shift gears from being an entrepreneur to being a business owner? Is it okay for some people never to shift those gears? How does that work? What do you guys think?
Well, back to what I said. I think it is okay if that's what you want. You got to figure out what you want, right? Do you want to be an owner? Do you want to be an entrepreneur? Or do you want to just work within your business, right? As a high-performing employee of your business, right? So, but there's a difference there. Some people take that as, I'm going to pay myself a high salary, and I'm going to run this business as an owner, and that's it. That's good. Well, that's not a good business, right? Because if you're not taking distributions as an owner, right? What do you really have? You just have a job, essentially, a high stress, probably low paying job at that.
Job just over broke.
Just over broke. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people operate there for a long time, until you can get yourself out of the way. I think a lot of people get in the way. If you can get yourself out of the way and let the business grow and let people grow within the business too. Give them a platform that they can grow on and get out of the way, right? Give them a process. That's the platform. You know, you created this. Give them the process. Give them the platform. Step back. Let them fail. Help them out. And don't expect it to be perfect. 80% is great,
80-20. Yeah, the
Yeah,
80-20
80,
rule.
yeah.
Do 80% of the way I'm going to do it. And then I practice the 80-20 rule of leadership, which is a John Maxwell thing. He talks about do the first 10% up front with them. Let them perform the next 80% of it, right? 80% of the way that you would do it, giving them 20% of room to failure, because in failures is where they gain. Failure is where you innovate. Failure is where you grow, right?
Yes.
And then on the back end, if you need to, put a bow on it, the last 10%.
Yeah.
Right, and run it that way. And that's how I practice leadership, because that's the biggest thing is how, and what we're differentiating here is personal drive and passion versus economic engines, which is businesses. In my opinion, as an entrepreneur, my goal should always be to start, run, thrive, and let go of business, and then put CEOs in place to operate my businesses,
so,
right?
Two things on that, before I forget these points. So one is the definition of a business owner versus an entrepreneur is a business owner sees themselves at the top of their business, which is great, or on the side of it, earning, as an absentee owner, earning distributions and maybe checking in with your company and making sure that the KPIs and all the activities you're tracking successfully. So you can continue taking distributions and the company can continue growing. An entrepreneur is focused on recruiting and hiring and training for the CEO to run the businesses that they are looking to develop. And so the willingness to say at some point, I need to start the process of hiring my replacement to run that company. The other thing I was going to say is a quick story that kind of talks about what you said about the 80-20, because I have seen some really specific statistics that talk about, I always write up on the board for clients that clearly are having a hard time letting go because they're so detailed or they have such a great process and they have so much IP stored in their head that's not documented that they don't want to step away from their business in fear of failure. And so one story was a client I brought on in the roofing business that was doing multiple seven figures, and we were doing a alignment, which is like a half-day planning session to do a 5-year plan. And I asked him, what's the biggest thing you're most excited about? What's your biggest fear? And his biggest fear, it's like, well, exciting is I'm outside of my business, so I'm working on it. And the biggest fear is that I'm outside of my business and I can't answer my phone for 4 hours. And it was interesting in that 4 hours, great learning for everybody else, is that I said, well, watch what happens with your team when they can't get a hold of you. I was like, what will they do and how will they operate and what will they learn? And what was cool, just give you the quick cliff notes of it, is we went through the alignment, and one of the biggest takeaways he had was that his ability to trust his team was going to allow him to let go. And trust for him was training. So when he could trust his team was when he knew they were trained up. And I said, well, let's see what kind of training got done. Because Brad Sugar says the global statistic, Brad Sugar's developed Action Coach, in 80 countries. So we're talking about a global data point on this. 80 countries, hundreds of thousands of businesses. The number one issue that keeps businesses in stunted growth is getting in their own way. So here, this gentleman got out of his own way, goes to check his texts me right after the alignment and says, you won't believe what just happened. And he had this long list of this one supervisor that he didn't tell that he was going to be gone because he lives on his phone. And it was this whole conversation over the past 4 hours. Like, first hey, I'm trying to get a hold of you. I don't know what to do with this client. Where are you at? I need some answers. And then 30 minutes later, it was like, hey, okay, so I think I might have a solution to this. And it was like an hour later, okay, I went with this. I hope you're okay with it. And then the end of it, it was, all right, so well, I made this decision. You know what? I got to be honest. I feel a lot better now. I think this worked out okay, but just give me a call when you get this message. He went through this whole training on his own. And the business owner was just taken back, like, wow. And I would have totally gotten overly involved in that situation. He wouldn't have learned anything. He wouldn't have built any confidence. And so just the recognition to your 80-20 that you were pointing out is the ability to step back and just allow failure to happen. Just like, because we're all parents here. Like letting our kids experience life, and, you know, we're not going to let them walk off a cliff. However, I'm not going to be a helicopter parent. Like, I'm going to let them walk, and they might fall. And then I'm going to be there to encourage them and get them up and overcome it. And so the same thing as business owners and leaders is we have to allow people to, one of the main 6 aspects of a successful business is having a culture that allows people to take risks. So it supports risk-taking organizationally.
So here, I'm looking actually who we have. We have some of our foundational, I'd say every single one of you are solopreneurs right now, pretty much. Like you show up, and your business runs off of you performing. Is that accurate assessment, if I got it all right? All right, so the next question I have is when is it and how, what is the next tier to actually know when it's right to go from solopreneuring to entrepreneuring to business owning? What do you think, Danny? When do you know it's ready?
I don't think you know. I didn't personally. I don't think there wasn't that clicking moment for me. There was the leap of faith to hire the first person, right?
Yep.
The first person, not to just assist you in your day-to-day activity with you, right? As a technician, as an electrician in the field. Not hiring the helper. It was hiring the person that was handling the things while I was working, right, at the same time. So it was hiring the first office admin to answer the phone, schedule stuff, pay bills, do all the administrative stuff that I was doing at night. Well, it's not that I just did it and I didn't do other things. That happened during the day, and I was a technician in the field still. Well, what I did at night, instead of paying bills and doing this, I was bidding jobs, right? So I was doing a different task. And then it got to the point to where it's like, okay, instead of doing that, I need to hire that person. And I stayed the technician for probably 5 years. And I hired an admin person here, and then we hired a project manager, and then we hired, all these different things.
So you were still doing the grunt work for the first 5 years.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think it's important to, like you said, you got to learn all those different things. And we were evolving as a business. What we started out doing in residential is nothing like we do today. And that was evolving over those 5 years. So I stayed in it as the company was evolving, doing those different things from residential to commercial work. And I was the technician. I was just hiring all the support staff for the business so I could be a good technician for the client.
It's brilliant.
And then started hiring higher level technicians to replace me. And then I went back, and then I was truly in the office and able to run the business daily without being in the field. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then you just kind of, it's a rinse and repeat from there. What's the biggest need, right? What's consuming the most of your time that you could be doing something that's more valuable?
Yes.
Not that I don't want to downgrade anybody's position. Like, they're all needed, right? That's why they're employees at a company. Right? Whether you're answering the phone or you're running payroll or you're paying bills or you're landing new work or managing, it's all essential. Everybody at our company is very equal with where they are, and they know they're needed. So it's just getting out of the way, right? Hire the right person, set them up for a little bit of success, get out of the way, let them go, focus on something else. And I think that's the turning point. And it evolves. It wasn't like
it's tied to revenue, though, too.
Well, I think that depends on where you are.
Well, I'm saying
maybe you have an investor.
It's usually tied to revenue, as in you can't afford it yet.
Right. Okay. Well, let me speak to that real quick, because there's a lot of people that I've talked to, business owners or somebody that's starting out in business, that needs money right now, right? I didn't have that problem. I saved some money. I was living as cheap as I possibly could. I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. I wasn't in school at the time. I had roommates. I had a lot of people, around me that I was working with where I didn't need a lot of money right now. So I could sacrifice what I was taking from the business, build the business up, build a cash basis up there that I could hire somebody and pay somebody. It doesn't take an investor. It doesn't take a lot of money.
No.
It takes time and it takes commitment and it takes sacrifice. If you're not willing to sacrifice today what you're doing, right, or your paycheck, you're never going to make it there. You're going to need an investor because you can't give it up. You'll never be able to stop as a technician that you're charging somebody for to go pay somebody to do something.
Well, and it's a fascinating thing because for me, that's my story too. Like a lot of that is I'm going to get in, and Mark Cuban. One of my favorite quotes from Mark Cuban from Shark Tank,
Yeah.
right? His companies don't rise and fall because of lack of capital.
Mm-hmm.
It's lack of effort.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to put your neck out and actually put it on the line, and a lot of times too, it's comparison's the thief of all joy. Envy, comparison, right? Envy, comparison. I'm comparing you, and I'm trying to skip a step.
Yeah.
Right? Every time I try to skip a step, it smacks me and it hurts. Right?
All
And
the time.
it's the ancient proverb that when one man pretends to be rich, it has nothing. Another man pretends to be poor, it has great wealth. And you hit this principle that goes, I'm going to live in my position today. And that's the hard part is like, but once you've tasted freedom and tasted high level stuff to get back into that position, that's the craziest part. It's kind of this, I'm speaking because that's actually the season I'm in right now. Be like, okay, I have to pull back and I have to get back in to strive into this way to actually get this thing where it needs to go over to that next hurdle, that next level. So much, I think, it comes to the entrepreneur willing to just suck it up and plan to eat crow.
Yeah.
Right? That's just, I don't think there's any other way around it. You cut your lifestyle. You cut it, and plan for it. And if you can't, then you simply have to you're trying to move that next step too fast.
Can I speak to
Yeah,
that?
please, absolutely.
Okay.
That's why we're talking. You
My
too.
thoughts are what I'm just playing back in my head what I did, right? And multiple companies in now and still having the first one. I think what made Clark Electric, or what was able to make Clark Electric successful in the beginning is that was me. I was able to do that, right? I didn't pay myself for months on end because I had a little bit of money built up before I started it that I could pay my bills and continue on. So everything was in the business. And then, so that worked, and everything worked out fine there. But started with nothing at all, and I think that if you can get from that point to past 5 years, call it 6 or 7 years, I think you're good.
Absolutely.
Right? Because you've gone through all the struggles, you've felt all that. Now, if you're in the same position, you got 1 or 2 employees after 5 years, you got to change something. There's something there. And then the other aspect of it, when we started Apex, I don't take any money from Apex. I started Apex as an investor. I started it with money. I hired the right person.
Yep.
We found them. They were in the business already, not in Clark Electric, in the industry. We hired them, gave them an opportunity. They're going to be an owner in that business, and he's paid to do it, right? So I started that one with a little bit of money.
Strategy.
Right?
Energy strategy.
But that wouldn't work if I didn't know how to run a business.
Exactly.
Right? You can't just have some money and say, hey, I want to be an investor and start a business. Well, if you don't know anything about business, how are you going to monitor it? How do you know you're hiring the right person? How are you going to set them up? All those different things, right? And I think by starting the business with nothing in the beginning and getting 10 years in, that's really what helped.
It's what makes you. It's what allow. That's why first generation operators and business owners are so powerful. In the second generation, what's short sleeves, long sleeves, back to short sleeves, right? That second generation doesn't know the sacrificial grind it took for the first generation to tee up the companies.
Right.
Right? It's hard when you're talking about being a founder, starting companies. Scott, what do you think though? Like when do you think someone, like what's the, you go from solopreneuring to entrepreneuring, business owning to investor?
Yeah, a lot of great points made. So let's go back to what Danny was talking about because I'm really trying to think through some applicability, so based on what's already been said, what are some actions I could take as a solopreneur or someone that's looking to capture that bigger vision and work a plan, because that's essentially what we do, is so first recognize you're wearing separate hats. So you're not just so have the B vision that you are a business owner, that's great, and that you're aiming to start producing profits that you can then take a future distribution of. So just recognize you're wearing multiple hats. You're also employed by the business. So here's one thing I see that happens a lot with solopreneurs or small business owners, is they're not actually taking a salary. And you know what? Break it out from that. Don't even take a salary. Take cost of goods sold, meaning that you should have a separate line item. Cost of goods sold is essentially variable costs is another way to say it. Variable costs, another way to say that is variable costs or cost of goods sold are tied to revenue. So every time I pay on my P&L, or if I'm doing my books, every time I pay a commission, I'm paying a commission to myself because my company just got another contract. I see business owners all the time not paying themselves commissions for the work that's helping the company grow. And if you're not paying for that now, you don't have a way to deliver that, then how are you ever going to be able to get yourself out of that role? Because no one wants to do that role for nothing.
Exactly.
And so once you start setting up a fundamental base level process of recognizing when I do X, this produces profit for the company, pay yourself for that. And then once you're gaining a yield beyond that, that's your differential. That's now you're an employee and an owner.
Yeah.
Because you're building towards something bigger. So that's a baby step that I see a lot of business owners or solopreneurs miss, and I'm not saying you're not going to go through seasons. When I had the labor service company, there was, I hate to say it, but maybe it's going to help someone else out there, is that I went 9 months without paying myself. Because I was that guy that was trying to grow beyond our capabilities before we were there. And one really great thing that I've heard both of you talk about is the patience. Patience is a virtue. It's a beatitude of high level leaders is not trying to rush things.
Yeah.
And so being patient in the process and recognize if I'm building towards a bigger future plan that I really believe, then what's the rush? What am I rushing for?
Let me ask a question. So let's get into nuts and bolts, because the whole point of CRES is we're a mastermind collective club of high-level entrepreneurs and leaders, right? And when I define a high-level entrepreneur and leader, it's not defined by the zeros in their bank account, but by the mindset in which they perceive. They're going to grow through it, because the next millionaire and billionaire is the guy that doesn't have any money right now, because it's effort and discipline, trust and accountability, knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and social capital are the four greatest currencies than cash. And so one of the greatest excuses that when I talk to young excuse guys that are making excuses of why they're not growing, it's always one thing.
What is that?
I don't have the cash.
Yeah.
If I just had the money,
If
if
I
I
just
just
had
had
the
the money, and you're like, dude, the money follows those other currencies. It follows it. And so much of this comes down to, we know what makes and breaks the subject matter of this, how to run a company without it running you. Bada bing, it's called systems. It's called discipline, right? And it's called rigorous routine. It's rhythms, and it's automating, right? And that's how I define a system, is very simple, and it's not technology. It's a critical path. It's a strategic flow, if this, then this, and it's try, failing, retooling, building, measuring, learning, all data-driven, and then finding what's connecting and automating that, and then finding the tools that make it run smoother. Could be a software, could be simply color coding your brooms, right? These different things. And so kind of, are you guys cool with that definition of a system? It's strategic, basically strategizing how to connect and automate, so you don't have to rethink about it again. Well, you find out what's working, and then you're finding the connections and automating it. Now, the tools which you automate, that's a whole nother subject, right? That's CRM, softwares, just straight up color coding things, right? It could be a pad of paper. It's not the most effective vehicle, but the system, you can actually draw it back. And so,
So can I
yeah,
put a
please,
frame on this?
Please, yeah.
So entrepreneurial funnel. So imagine a funnel, right? It's wide, sort of like lead marketing, right? So you got a big funnel up at the top, and then it comes down to a small path. Most business owners think when they get their business going, they got revenue coming in, they're kind of operating in chaos. They don't necessarily have systems in place that create consistency and structure and discipline, which you're talking about. And the first thing that most people think to do is, well, I need to hire somebody. And when you bring someone into your chaos, essentially what you're doing is you're
Exactly.
asking
100%.
You're asking for an employee to come into your chaos, operate in your chaos, and run your business like an owner with employee pay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what Jeremy's saying is that, in the entrepreneurial funnel, when you think of the funnel, before you get to delegation is the third thing, and below delegation is you. Above delegation are two things. The very first thing at the top should be elimination, because there's so many things that we do. A healthy business, like Danny was talking about, should be breaking systems as you grow.
Yep.
What I mean by that is I run into a lot of, especially more in the startup community and tech space, like my second startup was in the software space because I knew trades and I wanted to do something in software startup, and we did local funding, and I got funds together, friends and family and all that. And it was not the best move. We knew how to pinch a penny, but getting all that capital up front, you end up losing a lot of it just testing and measuring the market before you actually know what you're doing. And so a more measured approach is figuring out getting a business that can run off itself and produce income out of itself, and then figuring out what are the systems we're breaking as we grow and start eliminating some of that chaos. Well, and then you get into automation where you go, what's left? I need to convert from human capital investment, i.e. my own task or somebody else, and start automating it. So the difference between growing and scaling is being able to release task work that you're going to have to continue paying for and putting in some sort of automation tool.
Without having to think about it.
Yeah.
And so, again, systems are managed, people are led. In my opinion, that's how it works. I don't manage people. I lead them. And like Jim Collins, good to great. Get the right person on the bus, right? Wrong person off the bus. The hardest thing that I've experienced is that as you're starting a company and then running a company, it's another 80-20 rule. 80% of what you're creating is all innovation. So it's very fun. It's for some people, it's quite exhilarating. And then 20% of it is actually operating. Then you have to hit this shift and this grind where you actually do that. And it's a mirrored effect where it's 80% actually operating and 20% is innovating. And you get caught sometimes in this zone that's just spinning and you stop innovating. That's called corporate America. So then they start buying innovation, right? And those type of things, acquiring other companies. And so what I found in these systems is every 20% growth you experience, what you did to get there will not get you to the next 20%. You need to continually retool and innovate and try to find out what is connecting, right? And then here's the saddest part, too. A lot of times when you're starting something, you have to know that the people you're starting with a lot of times aren't the ones you're running with. And so realizing that as you hit that shift of the 80-20 from high-level innovation, subsequently chaos, to less chaos, your team is going to fluctuate, and you're going to do what I call the slingshot. You got to pull back to go forward. And so my thing is, what systems do you know that is kind of like a temperature control, like a temperature checkpoint? I call them forced plateaus. While you're scaling, while you're growing, how do you know that you are in a healthy position of growth? You're not growing too fast.
I feel like I've done all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you guys are talking, I'm laughing, smiling, or whatever it is. It's like I'm reacting. Our business's past years and experiences. That's what we call failures, experiences.
Yeah.
I have a sticky note to this day on my computer that says, "You will fail your way to success."
Amen.
Right?
Yes.
If If you're not failing, you're not trying.
That's it.
You're not growing.
It's
right?
part of success.
It is part of it. And get comfortable with it. Get comfortable with failing because you're learning something, right? You're gonna go out on a limb, you're gonna experience something. It's not gonna work out the way you intended it would be. But, drop back, punt, take a bunch of notes, figure out what you did, retool, and go back at it. You know what I mean?
Well, let's pause on that real quick, because what I just heard Danny say is just so impactful. And this is the process to build great systems. You can talk about systems. What I heard you say is take notes.
Take notes.
Document.
Data driven.
And then learning loops is a concept that we apply all the time.
Yep.
It's just if your business is events, if your business, whatever your business is, the learning loop is to stop, take notes, brief, debrief.
Yep.
And then just figure out what is the one change that we need to do. We run 2 monthly events, and the team meets weeks leading up to it to prepare for the event with all of our business owner community. And then after the event, we always do what we call an LBNT. So it's like, what did you like best? And then what would we do next time? And I'll tell you, it's so cool because we run a completely different event that we did 12 months, 18 months ago. Because every single time we've done that consistently, what did we like best? And it's easy for us to start off with the criticism, right? And that's not what fuels progress. What fuels progress is starting off with the like best and even having to reset myself. And when you get a bunch around of people that are the coaches, we'll start, okay, wait, I heard that. Let's just parking lot that for a second. Tell me what you like best. And then you're exercising your brain
What
to
do you
think.
think? Do you have something similar? I do. We call ours WBGs. Wins,
What?
broken windows, and growth.
Okay, so I've been with Scott for 18 months now, and I will say that the way I look at business and the way I understand business now, it took me 8 years of failing, right, to grow, and it can change really fast. I will say that. I think in the moment you're like, oh, this is a grind. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm failing. But you just got to keep fighting it, keep going, and keep learning from those, right?
Yeah.
And then, then it gets to the point where you have a team and they're working the processes and they're working the procedures and they're running the systems and plays, right? And it is so important to pull them in and do reviews on, like, when we finish a big job. Pull everybody in, even if it's a job that we did really good on. What do we do good on? What could we have done better on? How'd it go? Was just running through all these scenarios just to get a little bit better on the next one. And we're in the middle of 10 other ones right now, so it's not like you're waiting. You're doing those things right now across the board. And I think it's very important to celebrate the wins, celebrate the process,
That's it.
and keep moving.
So what I love is when you find common bonds. So what we do, our system, it's the same time, same day of every week. It's Mondays at 10 a.m., and we call them WBG meetings. We don't miss them. And for the first 30 minutes, the agenda is really simple. The first 30 minutes of that meeting is we focus on the last week. What were the wins for the week? And everyone goes through, like, man, we killed it at these things. And then each one picks a win, and then we ask, what's broken in the win? What is broken in the win, right? And so this is really interesting because now you're trying to find something negative in the win.
Yeah.
Not something negative out of the negative. I know there's a place to grow. We know this has to happen. What's broken in the win? So then you go, okay, then what is the growth? How do we fix that brokenness? And what I'm trying to do with my team is to double down on what was effective for that week. So we're starting off with a high because our brains immediately want to chase the horizon, as Todd would say, right? We're always trying to hit this place of perfection and idealism, like Dan Sullivan with the gap in the gain. You familiar with that?
Not so much.
You are, though. Yeah. And so that's interesting. So, like, everyone, like, take notes on that one. Everyone has some type of system where they're celebrating, they're learning, and then they're planning.
Yeah, well, what I heard you just say, Jeremy, is, and this is a really cool future present state. So if you have this goal that your business is going to be more than you, and that there's going to be other people included, what I just heard you say, Jeremy, is go ahead and put it in your schedule now as a future present state to meet with your team. Right now, your team is you.
Yeah, have it
so
every
meet with your
absolutely.
team.
Yeah.
And get your rhythm.
Yeah, get your rhythm
Yep.
and start being that person today that's going to propel you into the future. Because when you start adding team, it's going to be,
Oh man,
we've been here.
It's so true.
I
So
know I've been doing this for 3 years.
This is
with
my
with
rhythm.
you know?
What's yours? So my rhythm's daily huddles, 15-minute huddles. 3 things. Top 3 priorities for the day. What are you most excited about? What are you worried about? And then KPI. Give me a leading KPI. Right? Everyone reports on that. Do you guys have something similar where you have a daily huddle?
We don't. Well, not that I'm a part of. Our team,
The
right?
team does.
The team and their departments have daily huddles with what they're doing, where
Yeah.
they're at with things, what's the progress for the day, and go from there.
Right.
I'm a part of the weekly ones, and I will say in our operations meeting at 3:30 on Tuesday, no matter who's available, we have the meeting, whether it's just me and somebody else or there's 8 of us in the room. Have the meeting regardless, right? So it's starting it by yourself, but the most important thing is to build that repetition, because when you're not there, they still need to meet, right?
rhythms,
It's not just about you, it's about building that rhythm. We start that meeting every Wednesday or every Tuesday at 3:30 with a win. We go around the table. Everybody over the past 7 days, give me one of your biggest wins. Some people will name 3 or 4 or 5. We just let them go, right? Just put them out there. Some people are like, you know, they got to dig deep, and that's okay too. It's not going to be perfect every time. You're not going to have 10 wins to celebrate. Then you're just celebrating everything, like something big in your department. So that's really good.
The cool thing about having that structure that Jeremy and Danny are talking about is that that's what creates inertia and accountability. Accountability starts, you have to have an account for something. So I know this meeting's coming up Tuesday at 3:30. If I'm on that team, that structure has already got me thinking I have to come to the table
with a win.
And so what am I
show
doing?
up performing.
So
like,
what am I?
I'm actually
so if
trying.
you're setting a meeting for yourself on Monday at 10, you're going to have to prepare yourself in advance to come to the table with something positive to say about the and you could have had a crappy week and you still got to muster it up. And usually what I'll joke when I'll see people like really thinking through it, and give people time. People have different personality styles. Some people get just off the cuff, and some people need some process time. And so that's good. However, I will joke with them and say, hey, if it's taking you a while to formulate a win, that's probably a muscle we need to start exercising more frequently.
Yeah.
And that's when you got into daily gratitude journaling.
Yeah.
And it's just transformative, because gratitude can only be expressed in the present about the past. That's focused on where you want to go.
Yeah.
And if we don't get, time is not something that we get to bank. It's a non-renewable asset. That's why you'll hear people say time is the most valuable resource. However, it's the thing that we give away most frequently.
Everyone starts with the same bank account every single day.
That's it. What's the worst that you've heard? Besides, we don't have the money. I don't have the time.
Yes.
No, you do have the time. Same
Just
amount of
not
times I
taking it.
have. You're just not dedicating that time to the things that you really want to accomplish.
Well,
if you're not dedicating that time, you need to reevaluate whether that's something you really want. Right?
And I'd love to do like a 15-minute, 15-minute Q&A with our members that are here. And so, Daniel, let's grab that mic and raise your hand if you have a question. So we're talked about defining where you're at in your season. We've talked about how do you know when you're solopreneuring. We actually identified 4 seasons of a business person, right? It's just solopreneuring, entrepreneuring, business owning, and then investing. Right, that's the hyper things that you try to do, and so and then what we just started talking about was our systems, and the basis is rigorous routine, disciplined people with disciplined thought, disciplined actions. That's your roadmap. That's how you become economically successful. There we go. We're done, right? That's like just.
I'm hearing lots of so that's right over here. So I expect a question
Let's
come
run.
from over here.
So let's do this. Let's hit some questions.
Thank you for being here. This is it's priceless. I can just say that it's just priceless. I am a 30-year plus business owner.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
That's huge.
But to know that, all of this was available, I mean, I've done a lot, but to have this now at this stage in my life, because this is where I am, I'm ready to scale the business. It's a hair salon, but just to move on, because there's other opportunities and things that I want to do with my life. Prior to that, 30 years ago when I opened, I was a mom, so it afforded me an opportunity to own my own business and the freedom to be with my children and mother and wife. So that was good. But now at my age, in the stage of the salon and the business, I am at that mindset that I can take this in and receive it. And it's given me a roadmap because it's just exactly where I am on two levels. The ministry side, I have a nonprofit organization and trying to train people of some systems that we've been doing for probably about 14 years and releasing some things so that I can move on because other opportunities are coming. So I think this was just laid out so well. But here's my question, though. You were talking about releasing people to, take what you're doing. How do you handle it when you think that you know the person, you trust them, and they drop the ball? My thing is like, I got to move on and find somebody else. Because, it's my time, and I felt like
we got your question. This is a great question. Yeah, take that one.
When they drop the ball.
Okay. As in,
and I picked the ball up several times and try to keep things moving, but now my mindset is I can't afford to do that.
Got it.
Because I've done that alone. I'm a trainer and developer. That's what I
All
like to do.
So
go ahead,
I have a clarification question.
Yeah, context.
Is it when you say drop the ball, is that somebody didn't show up, right? A personal aspect of it, or did they just not do the job that you thought they should have done, right? So cutting hair, maybe the client wasn't as happy because it didn't turn out the way they wanted it, or did they just not show up? That was clarification.
It's been two occasions like that where, maybe not showing up, but like if you share something and they didn't follow through with what you asked, they just took it upon themselves to say, I just decided to do something different.
Okay. Hold on. So qualification versus quantification. So give me a net promoter score of how well they did 0 to 10. Your opinion as the owner, what was their performance?
On the technical side? Or on Well, the technical side is always there. The technical side was
0
good.
to 10.
0 to 10. It's a 10.
A 10. So 10 technical.
Yeah.
Now on the other stuff.
On the other stuff, I would have to say a 0.
A 0. 10 and
that's
0.
Perfect. That's
Woo!
perfect. Well, so can I jump in?
Yeah.
There? Okay, so the good thing is they've got the technical aspect down, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the harder things to do,
Yes.
right? Because it takes time, right? So for us to train an electrician, it takes years and years and years and years and years, right? But what they need right off the bat is accountability, right? Are they trainable, right?
Are they coachable and trainable?
Are they coachable and trainable? And do they want to do it, right?
Willingness.
Are they there for just this week's paycheck, just to make some money to move on? And I think as the business owner, the faster you find that out of who they are as an individual,
Absolutely.
right, is the most important thing. You can train them over time to be a better technician at what they do, right? So if they come to the table and they're already trained as a technician, that's just great. But are they trainable to do it your way and to run your systems and processes?
So the culture that you're trying to
and can I add to that real quick?
Hang on, I'll wrap this up. The thing I would look at is, do you have any processes or procedures in place at this point for that person to revert back to if you're not there to answer that question, right? Say it was how they checked somebody out or how they sold a product or how they onboarded somebody. You know what I mean? Documenting those processes and
SOPs,
procedures, those
procedures.
SOPs, right? Having those written out, because that's something, once you build those out, now you can train on it and everybody's trained the same way.
Do you have it?
I would have to say no.
Okay. Well, so pause, because there's some really great learning in here. So what Danny was saying, great stuff. I'm going to support what he said, and then challenge it to what I heard outside is when Danny's setting up a process for them to follow, it's like, where's the correction? Where's the coaching? So if they didn't meet your expectation, where's the correction? So a flight, because if there's no correction, then you own the results of yourself and your team. You own the ship. Ownership is own the ship. So you have to own the results, positive and negative. So the reason you know a plane is experiencing turbulence is because it's in the air. So if the plane is experiencing turbulence, you know it's flying. A business should be moving. There's going to be turbulence. It's what's the course correction to make sure you get to your goal. Do they understand the goal? Are they on the team? You know, skill, will, process. Skill you can train, process you can train, will is the hardest one.
Yeah.
Now, so you have them score themselves, you have yourself score them, you give them correction, and if you're not seeing incremental improvement, then you know it might just be an option where, so great book, Larry Burkett, Business by the Book, chapter on you'll never have to fire an employee ever again. They will fire themselves.
Yes.
And there's a 3-step process to helping them disqualify themselves from the role on the basis that you've had several corrections, and then they no longer align with either value or long-term focus, etc.
Yep.
Yep. No one should be shocked
Right.
when you let them go.
Right.
Right. That's the biggest thing. If someone is shocked when you let them go, you failed as a leader.
Yep.
Yeah,
Hands down.
because having clear expectations, to what Jeremy's saying, clear expectations up front with coaching behind it, supporting it, is the key to success. With
Focus
the team.
on your failure first. What did I fail? Did I not set them up? How did I set them? Did I put them in the wrong position because I just desperately needed to fill a position and I overlooked? Man, they just were not wired for this position.
Yeah.
The cheapest time of conflict is the moment it's discovered, right? But you can't make that decision off of just an emotional
Knee jerk. Well, you
have-
can.
but you should not make that
You shouldn't,
decision
right.
off of a knee jerk emotional play. Your decisions as a business owner are data driven. There are no friends or family in business. There's only friendly business.
Yeah, I love what Adam Grant has to say about that. The reason he doesn't call business community is because, he calls business community not friend or family, is that you can't choose your family, but you can choose which employees are a good fit and which are not.
Yeah.
So a better word usage for business is community, because tribal community exists with one common goal and understands the steps needed to get there. And if someone breaks that common goal or that value system, well, if someone just gets up and starts trying to attack people with a machete, you're going to, as a community, you're going to get together and get them out of there.
So let's move on. Questions.
That was a great question. Thank you for bringing that.
Solid
That
question.
was a great question.
Solid question.
One more resource, too, is Stephen Covey's Speed of Trust.
Yeah.
You can go get the summary
Jake,
of
what you got?
Stephen Covey's Speed of Trust and go pull that resource out and walk coach through that.
First of all, I want to say thank you guys for having us today. This has been really valuable. I am 2 years in as an entrepreneur looking to move into owning my own business, right? So I'm curious if any of you or all three of you can tell me about a time when you knew that your systems had broken or needed to improve, kind of when you were in my place.
I'll
for
take this.
instance.
I just didn't generate the results I needed. At the end of the day, I was measuring results. We operate off of OKRs, objectives and key results. We have goals that drive towards results. And as soon as I wasn't getting the results I wanted, my system was broken. Something was occurring to me that I needed to retool my process. I needed to retool my system. I needed to ask more questions and find out where that bleed. I needed to stop the bleeding. So for me, it comes down to how frequently, what are you measuring, and how frequently are you measuring? Because the only way to know if a system's working or isn't working is to be measuring results. What do you guys think?
100%. I think you have to measure everything you do. You got to measure employees. You got to measure their skill set. You got to measure their ability to learn and grow. You got to measure your processes. You got to measure your procedures. For us, we're always looking to change them and improve them. Not change them completely like, hey, throw that out, let's start over. It's like what you said earlier, when you have the wins, like, how could we still get better?
Tuning the engines.
Tuning them, right? We're always tuning them. And we're going through that process right now is we're documenting everything we do, and we just go in and fix it all and just monitor it off of results. But if you don't have a goal, right, the end result that you want, that goal, and you're not measuring to that, you're not going to know if it's broken, right?
And every goal has to have a number. It has to be SMART. Specific, measurable, achievable, relative to what you're trying to do, and time bound. It's a classic definition of a goal.
Sure.
I heard a different question sort of in there, is that you're looking to build a business inside your vocation. Is that what I heard you ask? And you're trying to figure out what, it sounds like they answered that question. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
How frequently are you measuring? What are you measuring?
General KPIs.
And just however you want to answer it.
Keeping the pipeline full. Keeping the pipeline full of inbound business. I'm looking at how many reach outs I'm doing, how many consultation calls I'm booking, how many closes I'm finishing, and then the duration of those.
Okay, so here's my feedback is your business, a great sustainable business is constantly re-looking at what your target market is. And over time, as it grows and develops, it will naturally deselect.
So we worked on this morning a little bit.
Yeah. So a great thing to do is, doesn't matter how many clients you have, 1 or 1,000, is go back and look at the top 20%. Think of the last 3 stories you've had where you were highly successful helping somebody. You go, man, if I could just duplicate that person, get every single bit, extract every bit of demographic information, sociographic information about them and their behaviors and what brands they identify with, and just dial in that target market and look to reserve that target market with their highest need and highest wants, and build your business around that, and recognize it's a living document. Your business is a living vehicle that constantly changes and shifts. And you provide a great service to them as you go. That's a recession-proof model.
Yeah, absolutely.
One more question. Who's got a question?
Did you have another one?
Anybody in the back? Any questions? Questions? All right, so if you've already asked a question, you have a follow-up question, by all means, fight it out, figure it out.
You mentioned some great reads, Larry Burkett and Stephen Covey. There was another person, Bob, the person you kept mentioning early on. There was
Michael Gerber?
The name kept coming up a lot. I don't remember.
Oh, Vern Harnish?
With a G, Grassi or Glassy, or you guys were mentioning another person's name. I just wish we could.
But there's
It's recorded.
Yeah,
It's
so
recorded.
so
It's
one that we
recorded.
mentioned earlier, if you're looking to make that Monday strategy meeting,
Yes.
go check out Vern Harnish, Mastering the 10 Rockefeller Habits. Chapter 8 will help you develop, whether it's a short.
Dan Sullivan was another one. Dan Sullivan, sorry.
Yeah, but so the Chapter 8 of Vern Harnish, Mastering 10 Rockefeller Habits, will help you do weekly, daily meetings with yourself or your team or as an owner. It's just the idea of having time to focus yourself as an owner in addition to the technical aspect or the operator aspect. It's recognizing that you're wearing multiple hats, and what I heard Jeremy say earlier is that you have to make sure that you're dedicating time to being, what you talked about, being in the weeds. Well, you're being an operator, you're doing what the business needs you to do at that moment. However, you're also reserving time to be an owner and think on the long-term vision and making space
Ins
for
and
that.
the ons. You got to schedule. You have to plan rigorously. I'm going to work in the business. I'm going to work on the business. And I think EOS and Dan Sullivan and these guys.
And Action Coach Tampa Bay.
And Action Coach Tampa Bay. Yeah, they have great processes and systems that was it Dan Sullivan that did the free focus and buffer days, which is just a phenomenal tool. You do that. We did the exercise together in our YP group, right?
Starts out by time blocking small bits,
Yeah.
and then over time you start collecting those together to where you have whole days or half days dedicated to certain activities.
Yeah, your top
However,
three.
the baby steps is starting by time blocking.
Time blocking.
And
Yeah. Which for my system's our 90-90-60. We can sync up on that. I could teach you my internal system for time blocking. Go ahead.
Can I'd just like to say something too it's been instrumental, I think, to me and my personal growth and our businesses is it's not just what you do in the business, right? I think it's a lot of what's helped me over the past several years is my network of people, right? And I don't think there's enough credit to that. It's put yourself around people, like-minded individuals, right? So if you're trying to go here, right, and you're constantly spending all of your time with people that are at a different level as maybe employees, and not saying they're better people by any means, but if you want to not be an employee and you want to be an owner, well, how many owners do you associate with? How many business owners do you associate with? How many entrepreneurs do you associate with, right? If the answer is 0, well, it's going to be really hard to gain their knowledge. Or every business owner that I know wants to talk about business, right? Every entrepreneur I know, they get thrilled on wanting to talk about business, and they want to hear about your business and other businesses. What are you experiencing, right? You have friends, and then you have, other acquaintances that you want to be associated with. And that's just been really impactful for me is finding good people that are trying to do the same thing as you and learning with them, right? And they're going to help carry you, and you're going to carry them too, right? They're all going to be at different points. I just want to point that out, that it's not just, you don't have to do it on your own.
Yes.
And learn on your own. You can get a coach, and you can have help, or, if you don't want to do that route, go find some people and there's a lot of people probably in your network that you don't even realize who they are.
Yes.
That you can go find and talk to. Have lunch with them, have coffee with them, spend time around them talking about business, and your business will grow.
Yeah.
That's why you're members here at CRES, right?
Well, you
Yeah,
just
find your
answered-
community.
You said what I was going to say. That's
Yeah.
why I became a member.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Well, for one of the reasons, but Jeremy was like, and my first conversation, I was talking with people who were speaking my language, and it just
That's
pulled
awesome.
me in. A book that, The Atomic Habits, which
Yes.
I got and
James
read
Clear,
that,
yeah.
so they were speaking my language, so yeah.
And then lever it, like Danny was saying, now that you got this community, lever it, get together. We talked through some action items today, create a wins group. Hey, we're just going to get together on this date and this time during the week, and we're just going to share our wins.
Yep.
Outside of your business.
Yeah,
We'll start
with other
facilitating that. I mean, we're starting to do weekly in our private Facebook group. So if you're not on that, get on that. We're doing that every week, and just kind of walking through it. It's a muscle. But yeah, we're a team. We're a family. A culture here, developing givers, growth mindsets. People, how can we serve? And so you guys know that. So thank you so much to our guests, for real.
Yeah.
Scott and Danny, you guys are awesome. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us. I
And,
enjoyed it.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is
it was
fun.
fun.
See,
Yeah.
right? I just met him today.
Yep.
Right? And very like-minded. That's what I was saying. I love talking with people and meeting people, right? And I learned a lot today, me being here, right?
Oh, no.
That's awesome.
Oh, no. That's
That's it.
that's the power of connection and community relationships, right? And this is it. I've known Scott, and so because I've known Scott for years, Scott vouched for Danny. He said, I got a solid guy. I already got a meeting set up. Can I bring him? Absolutely. He already has my trust dividend, that currency of trust that I talk about. I go, dude, bring him for sure. It's gonna be dope. We're gonna have fun.
And big thanks,
Because-
yeah.
yeah,
Thank
and-
you
and
to
Danny,
thank you to
thank you
Danny
for coming.
for making the time to do that, changing our appointment from
Yeah.
Well,
us to this.
when you
so.
asked me, how long did it take me to respond?
It's seconds.
It's mindset. You want to be around this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that.
What are we going to
position,
do?
right?
Who's it? Yeah, count me in. I'm in.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. So, well, guys, thank you. I know we're kind of out of time, but again, this is our CRES Chat. We do these every single month. It's the last Thursday of every month. So,
That's it.
but thank you guys. This is a fun thing. Let's all hang out. We'll spend some more time together.
Yep.
See ya.
Thank you.